matter who you are, where you are, what your choices have been, and what karmic timelines and contracts you have journeyed, the light is calling for the reunification of all aspects of life in this realm now. It is calling for the cleansing of all polarities. It is calling for the rising of all sacred heart centers now. All are being summoned home to the greater light now.
Hi, and welcome to Whole Soul Mastery and the Live Well, Live Whole podcast series. I'm Marie Mohler, and I'm an author, intuitive, and co-founder of Whole Soul Mastery. I invite our listeners to explore and engage our mission here at Whole Soul Mastery, which is to inspire, illuminate, empower, and integrate the aspects, all of the aspects that we truly are, in order to reflect and appreciate the greater wholeness, wellness, divinity, and whole soul mastery that we truly are. We aim to offer podcasts, services, products, courses, and inspirations to support you in your journey as you journey on to live, embrace, and embody the extraordinary gifts of your own whole soul mastery. Joining us today is Vanita Lakhwala, who is a practicing yogi, a yoga teacher, a lifelong learner, a child of the universe, a cosmic and heart-centered inspirer, and a speaker about living authentically, living our truth, being who we truly are, and embracing the shifts and the rising light on our planet today. So I'm excited to welcome you, Vanita, to this conversation and heart-centered connection today for our audience here at Whole Soul Mastery. Welcome, Vanita.
Hello, Marie. It's lovely to be here.
Yeah, one of the things that I want to talk about many things. I want to hear a little bit more about your story, your journey into being a practicing yogi and what that means for you. And then I also want to mention a Rumi quote that you share in some of your conversations online that has always touched me. I saw it the first time we connected, and maybe we'll start with that. And then I want to hear more about your journey. But you post that Rumi says, "Don't you know yet? It is your light that lights the worlds." Right?
Yeah.
And when we don't just read the words, but we feel the vibrations of what Rumi was painting, a whole world for us that was possible in that one sentence, right? We do have a light that powers worlds inside us, and it transforms worlds, it alchemizes, right? And it reminds us that we're creators of the light in this life. And I love that. That is what, we connected with each other, I think, through that light connection, the reverence we have for the light, how we embrace it and let it guide our lives. And maybe you want to share a little bit more. We'll weave conversations today about the light and also about your story, your journey, and the wisdom that you have to share. Yeah.
Well, Marie, I've been an explorer of the truth. Before I took on the yoga practice, I am from India, but I did not practice it in India. And coming to the United States, I have shied away from religion of all kinds.
Yeah.
I'm born a Hindu, but I have kept away from it for whatever reason. But I was an explorer of truth. I love to explore the wisdom teachers in novel form or whichever way. I was searching for the truth. And there was a time, I think in 2000, around 2001, that's when I felt I was in need of something deeper than my everyday life, which was very, very filled with blessings, actually. I didn't lack for anything, but I felt I was depleted of something. So that's how I started exploring. I took a yoga class and I fell in love with it.
Wow.
It was a physical aspect, but then I knew there was something deeper. So spirit nudged me literally to take a yoga teacher training class, like nudge, 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 wouldn't stop. And I said,
That's how
oh,
the
okay.
universe does it. It does those little nudges, right?
Nudge, nudge, nag,
Steady,
nag, nag,
persistent.
nag.
Right.
It was more of a nag than a nudge. And I was resisting, no, 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 no. But no, I didn't let me stop. Like, you got to, you got to. And so, yeah, I explored it. And then the yoga, the coach asked me, okay, so when you're going to start your studio? I said, no, I'm going to start my studio. I'm not going to teach anyone. This is just for my a more deeper understanding of the philosophy. Because I want to know the philosophy of yoga, what it really means. There's depth in it, and I love the depth of it.
Yeah.
So she said, no, you have to give a studio name. I said, okay. I drew up a picture. I put harmony on top, and I put a yin and yang symbol on the side, and I put another picture. I painted it with a rose and thorns, and I said, these are two aspects of being. You have the rose and you have the prickly part too. You can't have one without the other. And I said, and I also wrote a basic quote there about nature, how nature balances everything. We have to trust nature always.
Mm.
So it was that which was my so-called studio, but I never thought I would teach. And then people heard I was training and they started coming to me.
Wow.
And this is how I started to teach classes, yoga classes. But I do teach with more intensity than most teachers because I give the philosophy, the principles of yoga. The principles of yoga are all about refining the character. We are all of us built up with accumulations. Our true self is hidden deep, deep, deep inside.
Right.
And we use the yogic practices. It's a discipline. It's not harshness, but it's a discipline. Like, we have to discipline ourselves, how we speak, how we act, navigate through our outer life, because that's where testing takes place, not in a yoga room, outside. And then what our consumptions are, very discerning of what we put in our body. We honor our body like nothing before. I know sacred temple, and we honor our body. We avoid substances that poison, that are toxic. And everything is life expanding, always, everything. So everything was done in that modality. And as we go through the purification, the refining of the character, though, every layer has built up. Every layer has a story tied around it, characters within that story tied around that. So every layer that is stripped off us is releasing, but as it releases, we go through a purge, and purges are never comfortable.
Right.
So through all that, I had complete faith, lived in faith and trust all this time. And it was only on that. So I have to go through whatever is placed before me. That's my journey. And it's brought me now hardly any challenges. It's all bliss flowing in, because that's the refining of the character. That's the whole practice of yoga is about refining the character, taming the mind. Because it's the mind that projects and creates. And once we know that we have trained our mind, the mind becomes our best friend.
Yes.
From now, there we get a higher mind that is our divine self pouring in and guiding us and navigating through this physical realm. And we find we are fully supported.
Yeah.
So now we start to really play this human drama.
Yeah.
Because this is a play, and we forgot it was a play.
We did forget, right? That it is a theater, right?
It's a theater.
And we're the characters in it. And our character has many layers. What you're saying, according to the yoga traditions, is that we have many layers to our own character, interacting all the time with all the layers of the other characters who don't even know that they're a character, right? Right? That's all part of the spiritual amnesia we go through in the journey to remember. We forget so that we can go through the process of remembering.
Yes. So
Yeah.
this is what it is.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about, so are there levels, or we were talking a little bit before we got on the podcast, and you were talking about, are there layers or levels or things, stages of the refinement that you could say? Are there like 10 steps or 10 layers? Is there something like that in your teachings?
Well, it's actually 8 limbs of yoga.
Okay.
Okay, so a true yogi, a practitioner, has to um, be well versed in all of them. It's not just the asana practice, which is the postures, which is the popular way. When we say yoga, it's just about the postures. But it's the base, the root of yoga are the 10, there are 10 principles we base our lives on. They're like the 10 commandments, but not very rigid. It's more about uh, our own personality rather than the outer world. Okay.
I see.
So yeah, so it's the roots of yoga based on these 10 virtues, you could call them.
Okay.
And the first one is ahimsa, which is non-harming. We decide not to harm ourselves first, number one. Like we do things to our body by putting toxins or whatever, or we cut ourselves, things we do to harm our body and or our mental state for that matter, and non-harming others. So others meaning not just humans, non-harming other life forms.
Yeah.
That's the root first principle of yoga. Ahimsa. And then the next one is called satya. Satya is truth. And this is why when we practice it, now we are in the yuga or age of satya, which is the highest integrity. Highest integrity meaning that even when we are by ourselves, we are truthful. We are truthful to ourselves and to anything outside. We're always in truth. Without those two practices, we are actually lying to ourselves and being very deceitful. So these two, and then there's something called brahmacharya, which is moderation in consumption. Then there's asteya, meaning we don't envy another having what they have. We're content. Yeah. And then there is aparigraha, non-clinging. So we don't hoard, we don't cling to anything. Something goes away, it's gone. It's fine, it served its purpose. So that non-clinging helps us greatly, especially in these times, a lot. Yeah. Non-clinging. Things are coming in, they're leaving, they're coming in, they're leaving. It's okay. Lesson learned.
Yes.
And then, yes, lesson learned. If you can only say that lesson learned, then it's very easy. And then there is, and then these were the outer world things, like the outer world, something's happening and how we are interacting with the outer world. Now the next thing is all about the self as the self. So the next thing is all the training, disciplining the self, keeping ourselves clean, meaning inner body. And we do that with putting clear substances that do not stick in our body, foods and things like that, junk food. And then also saucha is called saucha. It's about having clean thoughts, happy thoughts, blessing thoughts. We bless everything we think about, so we bless. And that's saucha. So keeping the inner state clean, the outer body clean, then keeping our spaces clean where we live. We surround ourselves with cleanliness. That's saucha. Because it's a clean canvas, right? Anything clean, something new can come in.
Yes.
Yeah, and then the other four are santosha, which has been in a state of contentment at all times, no matter what's happening. Saying I'm content, I am in the right place at the right time, having what I have, what I don't have. Is contentment. That's contentment. And then the last three are part of what is called Kriya Yoga, which is what I think the majority of humanity is going through right now.
Okay.
And if we train ourselves with those three, it is the best, because it's called Tapa Swadhyaya Ishwar Pranidhan. And Tapa meaning that you go through the fires of purification. And purification, everybody wants to be pure, right? But we have to go through the fires.
Yeah.
And Tapa Swadhyaya, and in the Swadhyaya is our introspection, which is what everybody is being invited to come into introspect. Everything shuts down. What you're going to do? Look at yourself, discern. So introspection, swadhyaya, and Ishwar Pranidhan is the best of the best. Is like surrender to divine will. Your will, not my will, be done. So this is this total trust in the process, just like the wildlife does, total trust in the process.
Right.
Storms come, storms go. But if we tune in to that trust, we are provided all the information of how to weather the storm.
Yes.
So these are the 10 principles, the roots of yoga. This is what I teach people. Then we go into the asana practice because we move so that the energy can move around, because energy sticks otherwise in our joints.
Right.
The movement is to create flow, because energy is always flowing. It's stuck in our bodies. And then we go to pranayam, which is the third limb of yoga. And in there we do the breath work, where we bring in the life force in a cleaned space, a cleared space.
Just
See?
listening to you, I feel just, with our listeners, how many people take the time, because we're trained to look at the surface of things. It's been our conditioning just to go to the surface level. And when we just speak words and we don't connect them with vibration, right? And when I listen to your words vibrationally, I bathe in all the frequencies you just shared. I have an experience of yoga when I hear you just share even just those 10 principles, those virtues, but I feel like I'm bathed in the consciousness that they bring to each of us, in whatever ways we can receive that. And I think that's what happens, right? People engage the journey of the teachings that you share, right, with your students, your people, to have that experience. And it's not something that's really outside yourself. It's really an intrinsic journey. It's something that's bringing out what's inside, and we're clearing that, right? Yeah, that refinement process that you talk about. Right. We're cleaning and clearing and making room to be the light, to let the light move in our channels. And maybe even just for our listeners, we're talking about the vibrations of words. We're talking about these incredible principles that are vibrational truths. They're vibrational templates that really support the structure of who we are in our lives, right? Yes. What's the difference between, when you talk about even that breath work, what's the difference to you between air, breathing oxygen, and prana? How could you explain that to people?
Well, air is a medium through which prana comes into this form. You see, when we have our wires connected to a socket on the wall, the wire is a medium. Without that, well, a lot of things are happening wirelessly, but right now we're still plugging in. We're putting a plug in the wall, and then we connect to our device. Then the device can be activated. Otherwise, there's no power in it. So the air is actually the medium through which, or the breath, you could even say, is a medium, is a cable, you could say, through which the prana comes into this form. Otherwise, that's why all that we need to be in well-being is to have enough prana. Not over, like any device you overcharge, it will burn up. So one has to, as we are the light bringers, we bring in the prana, but we don't hoard it for ourselves, because we will just fizzle and burn out. We circulate, we send it to the earth, we send it to wherever way we activate through our actions in service, in our daily life, whichever way we circulate it.
Yes.
And well wishes around the planet, the cosmos. It's because we're not just a planet, we are in the cosmos. We are part of something so vast. We thought we're sitting in this little ball and that's all it is. It's not. We really want to be aware of, we're part of this field of pure potential. Why are we thinking so small? Right. So small with our little issues, so small.
Right.
We just become,
and we're so powerful.
So powerful.
We're so incredibly powerful to create and manifest anything.
We can create this whole solar system too. If you put our, attention on it, we can. If you just believe in it.
Yes.
So, but we have to break our conditioning down that says, this is how science told us it is, and it can never be any other way. Right. So the right brainers to come in full time and say, I'm going to be the artist that I've never been. Right. Let's dream on. Let's dream on. Right? And then let's see what happens. The universe is backing us.
Oh, yeah.
They're saying just waiting on us, really. And so now then I would just say one more thing about the yogic tradition, because there was a time. So this has been my um, quandary last 2 years, in a way, that the training that I used for my daily living, it was bringing us to the state where the yoga practitioner was practicing so that they could shed their body and then come into the state of enlightenment,
Mm,
like the Buddha. Okay, let's say.
yeah.
So that shed his body and he was enlightened, and he said, okay, I'm done with this body. I shed, I'm now gone, enlightened. But that was to bring us to that time, the old trainings of yoga also. We have to understand that even these wisdom teachings evolve. Then the potency is lost after a point of time. When you finish, you become a butterfly. You don't want to know how to become a butterfly. You're already a butterfly.
Right.
You're still saying, I'm going to do my caterpillar things to become butterfly, but you're a butterfly. Why would you want to go back there and hurt the butterfly wings?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So then I was in this kind of, I kept shifting away from the traditional, everybody doing the same yoga thing, to my understanding of where the shift is going, what the shift is about, and what consciousness is about, and using that understanding. That now this understanding is we're taking our body with us in the enlightenment process.
Right.
That is a difficult thing to do,
Yes.
because this body is hardwired for the iron age and the golden age.
Right.
So it's like Tesla's electric vehicles.
Yeah.
In Tesla's electric vehicles, there's the potential for self-driving in the machine,
Yes.
but it's not turned on because the infrastructure isn't there to support it. It's there,
Yeah.
fully self-driving. Once they say, okay, roads are ready, they can turn on a switch. I don't know how they operate to the factory, maybe.
Yes.
Other user does it, I don't know. But it's got the potential.
Yes.
We, even enlightened, iron age body knows already how to be in this golden age. Only the mind of the human doesn't know that until the human is ready. The human says, okay, I'm ready for the golden age. That's when the body starts shifting, doing its thing, throwing out all the old conditioning of the iron age. And
Right.
I'm here now. So this is the challenge for us, you and me, and the light workers, to use some of the yogic teachings, but not from the understanding I'm going to be enlightened like the Buddha and shed my body, because that'll be the opposite of what we want to do.
Right. Yes.
Taking a body with us, with the shift of consciousness, the consciousness that's flooding our being now is actually wiping out the iron age conditioning. For
Mm.
you and me who have done the work, we say, okay, fine, good, let it go.
Right. Let it go. Right.
We won't fight it. But the majority of humanity has not done this.
They want to hold
And,
on that sort
and
of
then they
tight.
say, this is my identification of the iron age. But they don't know that what's coming in is going to uplift them to a better life.
Right.
So this is where I had to shift my yogic understanding in relationship to the shift of consciousness of the collective. Before we were doing it piecemeal. You were doing it here in North Carolina. I was doing it here.
Yes.
We were the Buddhas walking in a solitary journey. Now, guess what? This year, everybody's up getting enlightened
Yes.
as a
Yes.
collective. So this
Going
is
to a whole new level inside us. And, when you're talking, it reminds me of my own journey, but I remember finding the words and the vibrations of Wayne Dyer. Did you ever listen to Wayne Dyer?
all his books.
Right? And he talks about, I can't remember in what book, but he talks about dying while you're alive, right? There's this process, and we're dying to the old layers of ourselves, like the caterpillar, to become that butterfly. And we just become that new version. And in the past, like you said, the past yogis, the Buddhas would ascend, and they would, they'd leave a plane of existence. They'd ascend right out of physical form. But we're ascending while we're alive. We're going to stay in form and embody that higher light.
Yes.
And to us, that is so exciting, but we've been taking the steps. You say 2001 is when you felt that inner nudging to something more. And that's how the universe works. It'll tap you on the shoulder and persistently and steadily call to you. And you have choice. You can say, no, I don't want to do that. But what I found is when we don't listen to the voice of the soul, we begin to suffer. And I had my own experiences of that. We both have, right? We know what it's like to listen, and everything opens and gets lighter, right? And we step into it. And when we resist, it's like we gain 10 pounds, right? For every day we say, no, I'm not doing that thing. I'm not, right? Right? We become heavier and heavier. And sometimes the best thing that we can do is feel those doors opening inside us and say yes to it, is say yes to something that knows more for us, like our higher selves, our higher consciousness is trying to inform our ego minds that are pretty maxed out. You know, we have mastered, you say the Iron Age, we've mastered what our mental minds can do alone, on their own, without being informed by that larger conscious living universe. We've mastered what our minds can do. And you can see also the imbalances that creates on the planet. Because when we're not taking into account a spirituality, an interconnectedness with all things, right? And you said, I don't remember the term, but the do no harm principle, the first principle, which to me is woven into the oneness. You know, why would I harm something else that is me? Right? When we're coming back into this awareness that we aren't this a semblance of separated parts, right? And that's what makes us so small. I think it was, I've covered this in other podcasts with the foundation. We talked about Newtonian physics was all about just a series of parts that are very loosely related to each other, if at all, right? And we're starting to realize that everything is vitally interconnected. And that's more than just concepts and words. It's becoming a vibrational reality. And we're seeing that even now on the planet with this global pandemic that we've all experienced, right? There's a living energy of we're realizing what happens in one part of the world affects all of us in this, where we are, right? From everything from getting the products that you need to live, to eat, to take care of your body, to have the water you want, right? All of these things require that interconnectedness. And when we are all awakening to that, we're all participating in giving our consciousness to that interconnection, that interweaving, that tapestry of life that the whole cosmos and the creation truly is. And people listening to us, you know, even though there are times that can bring us great fear, you know, fear can be at your doorstep. It can be right in front of you. But when you're tapped into this interconnectedness and you know that there's this place of creation, we haven't talked yet about, but that 0 point, you know, how do the teachings and the principles tie into tapping into the 0 point? Because that's where we can shed the fear. And that's where we also know we're at the point of creation, which is where our power point is, right? Both you and I have found different ways to access that very same frequency. It's the same universal language. It's the same universal point of that 0 point. Can you talk a little bit about that from your understanding, what the 0 point is?
So keeping in line with the yogic teachings, it's about the steps. These steps, we say they are steps, but they're all happening at the same time, right? In the discipline of yoga. So as we practice the virtues, we practice them. We're just not superficially in the doing part, it's the being part. You know, how are we being? When we are being in a certain way, in harmony and in balance, it's all about harmony and balance with our true nature, with our authenticity, then we operate from there. So the action takes place from there, the asana, the postures take place from there, let's say. And the breathing, we take the breath in a certain way. So in a yoga session, let's say, we want to get more centered when the world has sort of disturbed our inner balance. We come to a quiet space and We practice the breath work. We can flip around the steps. We can do the breath work first and then the postures next. Many traditional yoga teachers in India do the breath work first. Pranayama is given more importance than the asana practice, which I also highly recommend in these times. The pranayama is more important than the asana practice. And what does is the pranayama, which is the regulation of the breath, and it's done in many different ways. There are 3, 4, 7, 8 actually true pranayams one can practice, and they're done in different ways where we target different parts of the body for cleansing, internal cleansing. And then as we cleanse, we create space for that high vibration to flow in. This is the life force flowing. We have to think about it as life force, not just oxygen going to the lungs, but life force going into every cell in the body, and then filling our auric field. Because we are a field of energy, we have an auric field around us. And so the prana doesn't sit in the body, physical body, because we have subtle bodies also. It goes into our subtle bodies. It's very complex in a way, but it is still, once we understand it, then we know how to operate. And then as we get into that state of quietness, quietude, we come into a state of an internal focus, and we may open our eyes, but we are very quiet in our gaze. We're not dropping into the outer. We are the inner being, observing ourselves, being in an outer space. We don't lose ourselves in the outer, which has happened for most of us. We just lost ourselves in the outer, then we were pulled in every direction, and we felt depleted and very unhappy. So in this way, we create a space where we can find that inner beingness, and then we open our eyes, and when we do our movements, we are doing it from the inner beingness, quiet. In that quiet, we create a one-pointed focus. So we have an intent, maybe we have an intention to be very harmonious no matter what, an intent to be very balanced no matter what, to feel easeful and joyful. Joy is a beautiful thing to have. We don't have to be serious about it. We can even joy and then say, my intention is joy all day, every moment. That's a good thing to have, right? Yeah. Why should we be serious like the old yogis, right?
Right.
We want to have smile on the face, and then from that, actually, it draws us into that one-pointed centeredness. That distractions come in and out, but we are not swayed. We call it a story. If it's directly affecting us, we'll take right action. But otherwise, why go there? And your, my story is one-pointed focus. We know we were heading. We're not going back. No. We are one-pointed. We have this called dharana. It's a very wonderful practice, because it says, put your focus on something, and then all your energy goes towards it. Where you focus, your energy goes. It's so simple.
Right? It is.
Meanwhile, most of us have been fragmented in our attention, split in every direction. This is how our world has become. Pay attention here, pay attention there. And meanwhile, nothing where your body is. And then you feel depleted. You reach for more food. You may be drinking or whatever thing to patch up.
Right.
I don't feel so great. I'm going to put something in there. Depleted. While we say one-pointed, energy only kept when you want to use it, and I'll use it then. So that's a very powerful being, isn't it?
It is.
You don't dissipate your energy unnecessarily. Stories are all over the place. Why should you put your attention? There's gazillion stories.
Yeah.
And then from that state, we drop into that samadhi state. So no, after the focus, we go into what is called meditation. And that state of meditation is that state of knowing the I am presence. And then in that I am presence, after a while, you sit quietly, you dissolve, that the I am presence also dissolves into that vast void state, which is known as samadhi. In that samadhi, you become the programmer of your reality. You go in there and say, okay, clean out that, clean out that, keep that, clean out that, and then refabricate. That's the samadhi state. So that's the void state, and that's very powerful. The more we become aware that everything that is my reality, as we say, my reality is created by the being.
Yeah. So that is
Nothing
the
else.
creator state.
It is a creative state.
That
It
is
is
the
a creative.
creator state.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For the lay person, it is enough even to come to the asana pranayam to become peaceful.
Yes.
For people like us, we are playing in the creative field, and it takes. This is my 24/7, 360-day way of being.
This is who I
all
am.
that I am.
Yes.
And my focus, I'll still operate in the everyday world because I'm a householder. I have a home, a husband, child, and all. I do all my duties, but this is priority for me.
Yes. That's the guiding light. That's the guiding principle and energy in your life. And that keeps that energy flowing all the time. We haven't talked about the toroidal field. Does yoga talk about the torus, or that electromagnetic field that's flowing through us? Is there something you would say about that? But that's what I know also. It's always washing through us. And it's where focus is going, energy is flowing. And so
Absolutely.
when we're that creator, we're this engine of energy. That's where the power to create worlds is. But yeah, that toroidal field, I think I learned about that. I relearned and remembered the language of that, I should say, in 2010. And is that something that's in, how do you that's what we're talking about, some of that pulsing of energy that's constantly flowing, right? Constantly flowing through us.
Yeah. Well, the yogic tradition doesn't speak about it because it comes from the Indian tradition, Sanskrit, and the Yoga Sutras. There's the way they have it in the Yoga Sutras is more about the siddhis, the powers. They're
Right.
they're supposed to get so many powers and all that. I have yet to meet a yogi who has demonstrated that. It's all been a book form.
Yes.
So, and personally, I don't feel like I can shoot out lightning or anything like that yet.
Yes. I'd say yes.
Yeah, anything is possible in this field of pure potential.
Yes.
But what I have experienced, so the toroidal, I have studied the Taurus through the Western teachers more than through the yogic Indian teachers, because they don't hardly speak about. They talk about these powers.
The powers.
And there have been books about master yogis like Yogananda, who, and then he has written the book where there were yogis who could float and do all sorts of things, become a tiger and all that. I have yet to meet personally anybody like that. Everything is bookish. Yet the Taurus is really, really interests me, the Taurus, because that's what you said. Everything is flowing continuously. And this body is an instrument for that.
Exactly.
This is the understanding, because we are not the body. We are the being that is having the experience using this physical body in a physical world. And as long as we keep the energy flowing in and out, the difficulty with humanity has been that we do not eliminate very well.
No, we don't. We hold on. We have
we get
attachments,
plugged,
right?
and it's shown in a colon, right?
Yes.
The colon shows it, how many people are plugged up.
Yes, literally, right?
Literally, really. This is a dilemma. It's a not letting go. So one of the aspects of yoga is called vairagya. It's a detachment, divine detachment. It's a practice again, which I have practiced for the longest time.
Yeah.
And it is a tough practice because you go against the grain of world consciousness when you do that.
Right.
How can you detach? How can you detach from people or things? How can you do that?
Right.
But if you don't, and I tell myself, if I don't do that, I say somebody's got to do it. So I volunteer.
Might as well be me, right?
I'll volunteer. It's a wonderful practice. It brought me a way forward. It pulled away all doubt of what to stick to and what to let go of. That's how you're able to become the powerful soul you have become, Marie, by not worrying about world opinion, community opinion, and me the same. Like, I know I don't walk the same way as my family members, but I say those who I do this and you do this so that it actually serves the greater good.
Mm.
Otherwise, you will be stuck in a limited ways of being. So the Taurus is very, very interesting because yes, just imagine that. And the thing is, the more we do the pranayama practice, the so you can imagine the Taurus as being 6 feet, 6 feet auric field, right?
Yeah.
Auric field is 6 feet. This has actually been a blessing for us because everything is kept outside of our 6 feet. It's like, okay, my auric field is my field. It's good for me. It's good for me. You stay out there until you're the same vibration. And I say,
Right.
fuck off. Otherwise, you stay right there. It's fine. But to see the Taurus field is that vast. When we do the pranayam and we do the mantra and we have this focus of world wellness or world blessing or taking not just taking of the earth actually knows how to take care of herself, but
Yes.
bringing more harmony in the mental state and the emotional. Then now actually a Taurus field becomes very vast. It becomes vast as this room and as vast as we want to send it. So
Yeah.
that's where the Taurus field is, the way it operates. That what we do in a cavern will go out when we do it with that inner integrity and pure focus.
And
That's
we
how
embody it. We embody it.
we embody. Yeah,
And,
yeah.
it's like, I think it was Marianne Williamson that said, when we step up, basically, I'm paraphrasing, but when we step up in our courage, right? And we step up, we give other people permission to do the same. When we
Absolutely.
embrace our liberation, we embrace this emancipation and this non-attachment, this neutrality, right?
That's the word.
When we embrace the neutrality, we invite other people into the possibility of that for themselves. And while at first many may judge that and not understand that and look at it as if we're being selfish or unkind or not compassionate or not joining the suffering of others, right? I've
Yes.
definitely had some mirrors and messengers in my life that have shared that perspective with me, right? And what I've learned is, in the place and perspective that they're in, if I join them there, then we're just growing the energy of suffering. But if one of us can find this other portal of entering this more expansive light, this place of neutrality, this place where everything and nothing exists in the same one point, and that everything can be created from that, I'm so attracted to possibility and potentiality. I'm wired to be a creator. And I think if I was tuned into something as a little kid, I was so tuned in to creating. I was so tuned into nature and I was so tuned into light somehow. It just, not to say I was a perfect child and I was a perfect person my whole life. What it means is I was in the journey of life and I was guided by this principle of creation. And it was a Foster Gamble in the Thrive movie. I don't know if you ever saw that movie, but it was a whole documentary, and he's talking about Tesla, interestingly. And he talks about Tesla's free energy, and he was exploring, why don't we know about more about this? It's been 100 or so years, right, since Tesla was bringing this information through to all of us, this inspiration, and we don't have access to that. But he was following this toroidal energy and this creative energy. He saw that pulse early on in his life, and he was the one, that's where I learned about the toroidal field, was in that documentary. And for me, I think I'm connected with some toroidal energy or the heartbeat of the earth or this 0 point energy. I guess it's some level, it's all the same, it's all one. But that's the excitement I can have in my life, when there's also simultaneously, I could be going through challenges at the same time. I could be challenged and creative at the same time. And what I've learned the most in my life is, when I've been most challenged, the healing that I needed was going into that still point, listening and creating from the inspiration from the inside. And it was in creating that I healed, that I found the resolutions to the challenges I was having, and that I found a greater joy inside myself. And that's where I go now today. Like, I just know, what am I going to create today? What wants to move through me today? right? And your practices that you teach people is a way of being. And it's also a way for them to tune into moving that energy that wants to flow inside them, right? Imagine if you
Yes.
had said to that little nudge, go take a yoga class, and you said no. You know what I mean? Talk about the constipation. When you say no, there's the plug, right? The life force of the universe is always finding us. And
Yes.
yet there are these things that, because of our conditioning, we do accept sometimes. We say, okay, yeah, I can't do that. Or we feel limits or lack or just not enough energy. And something happens just in the energy of saying yes that
Mhm.
creates flow,
Yeah.
right? Yes
Mhm.
creates the flow, and no plugs it up in its
That's
own
it.
ways, right?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
as you mentioned, there's the energy is always flowing. We can't say, oh, there's no energy. Energy is always flowing. It's all around us. It's just we and our focus,
Yeah.
how we're focused. That's it. This focus is so important. And our intention also. So that's another thing that's actually taking place now is what we, one of the aspects of yoga is what's called neti, neti, neti. It's a practice we do. And you may have heard about it. It's about uh, uh, saying our identifications with who we believe ourselves to be.
Mm.
So it's called neti, neti, neti. I'm not this, I'm not that, then who am I? That's the
Mhm.
query of the yogi.
Right.
And right now we the all of us are going through this, everything we identified with.
Mm.
That's the thing. So what
Yeah.
basically we are trying to do is dive deep into the core of ourselves, like that, that sweet part of the onion. And
Yes.
as we peel the onion, we cry. Every layer
Yes.
we cry, the upper
Right.
layers we cry. But we know in that, especially a red onion, if you have seen red
Yes.
onion, it's beautiful. And you take every layer and you cry quite a bit with a red onion.
So
But it has a
true.
lot of potency. It's a lot, very potent food item. And then when you go deep inside, in that white kernel with that perfect pearl-like shape it has, it's the sweetest.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the
That's
neti,
us.
neti, neti. Every layer is stripped off, and we do it in our yoga rooms and good days, not when times are hard. In
Yeah.
good days, because we want to see who am I, and then we come back and put the layers on lightly back, and then go
Right.
about our daily life. But we know that the who am I is that sweet kernel.
Yeah.
Everything else is a layer.
Yeah.
That's the practice of yoga, which has served me greatly. And in these days, that's something I used to train before. I had my physical practice.
Yeah.
We talked about it very often. Things shift, everything shifts. There's change happening. That's change. Let's call it growth instead of change, because the word change is traumatic for some people.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
we say call it growth. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
And the word challenge, instead of the word challenge, we call it adventure. The
Yes.
fun element in adventure, and challenge is a difficulty usually. So
Yes.
words are very important, and we use the word adventure instead of challenge. Then we say, okay, yeah, bring it on.
That's
I'll
right.
weather it.
That's right.
Like extreme sports people, they go through extreme sports, and they call it an adventure.
Yeah.
They don't call it a challenge. There's a adventure. It's fun. There's a fun element in it. So doing that, we call it growth. And what's happening is we are going through a growth patch right now.
Mm. And just like you said exactly so beautifully, I love the onion example. I totally resonate with that. I could really feel that, right? We cry when we peel back the layers, right? We're weeping, right? It is, and it's a huge process. And yet when we embrace the adventure, when we see it as an adventure instead of a challenge, that word embracing really can fill us, and we can step into the experience versus resisting or pushing it away or
Correct.
being terrified by it. What is it? The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. There's a part of us that is afraid of fear itself. But when you step into fear, when you step into things that we are most afraid of, or that we feel less than, or that we're lacking something, we find that we actually often have exactly what we need in that kernel you're talking about, that kernel inside us of light,
Yes.
right? That knows how to guide us from that higher consciousness. But we do have to be willing to peel back the layers to experience that. And when we avoid the layers just keep us from the blissful experience, the joy that's in the center, that
Correct.
neutrality, that place of creation. And so it is a journey. I think one of the last things I wanted to ask you about today, because I would love to have you back, we have so much to talk about, is really talking about the repetition, I think, in the principles and patternings of yoga helps us to sustain some of these new changes or growth experience or adventures that we're having. Because if we don't practice it right, we learn the words, we take it in. How many of us have taken a workshop or read a book, and we are inspired by it, we close the book, we're finished the book, it goes up on the shelf, and we stop the living of it. When we were in the energy of the book and we were reading it actively, we were part of that. And then we close the book, we close the experience, and we put it on our shelf. But yoga gives us this practice, right, to continue to sustain this energy and this consciousness of moving the energy and really accessing the joy of that inner center, that core. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So one of the aspects, so one can focus on saying, I'm going to face my fears, but then again, a focus will be on the fears and what will show up next in my life. Another easier way is to focus on joy and contentment.
Mm.
So if we focus on joy, contentment, appreciation, gratitude, thankful for what is in my life and what's happening, even in the midst of a situation where we have what may call a difficulty, but we created that. Not many people will agree to that, but each person creates our story.
Yes.
And recognizing that. But for the lay person, it's easiest to say, practice, go to a yoga place, practice yoga, because what it does, it neutralizes the charge that's playing in the field, the negative charge, the disharmony, emotional upset. It neutralizes it. Even if the person never studied the philosophy of yoga, that's what the practice does. It neutralizes. First thing is to neutralize it, to discharge the strong charge. That's the most important. That's why people love it, because they may not study the books and all that, but that's what the practice in a yoga center or studio, or even now online, would do that. That it just brings you to the neutrality. And then from there, some practices that the person would do is write a journal of gratitude, daily gratitude journal. It's the simplest practice every person can do. Gratitude, I'm grateful for the air, the sunshine, those kind of things. Not my husband, wife, whatever, the usual. But no air, you're not here. You're gone.
Right.
Please say thank you, air. Thank you for that. We have a pigeon who's roosting in one of our trees with eggs underneath, not getting up. Beautiful. Thank you for the beautiful pigeon. Flowers, things for beauty, nature, anything in nature. Even
nature is so easy to appreciate. Yeah.
Clean space where we can practice yoga.
Yes.
So the simplest thing is gratitude in these days, and a state of surrender to what is. Not fighting what is. It's already done. Why fight it?
Yes. Yeah.
So that's where I would say a lay person would find not the complex stuff like we were talking about earlier. And then when someone wants more in-depth inquiry, they would find, I'm sure, the resources for it. So always a seeker always find.
Yeah, exactly.
And we never want to give too much to anyone who can't digest it.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And when they seek more, we will share, right?
That's it. And they will find.
Yeah.
As one is ready, the resources come. But when someone is not ready, it's like hitting someone on the head with some, or you're hitting a concrete wall.
Oh,
getting through.
played that role of that character many times.
Stop.
Sharing information with people who are absolutely not interested. And you know, the best thing I could do in my life was give myself permission to share with the people who are interested.
That's
and
it.
and let it go with the people who don't, because they're on their own path, like figuring things out for themselves, seeking in their own ways. And boy, it took me personally a long time to learn that. And you know, I'm only coming now into this understanding of the gifts of neutrality. That wasn't even part of my language as a consciousness earlier on. You know, I think we have information and we need to share it. We feel almost, I can say I felt almost compelled to share it. And then you have people doing exactly what you don't want them to do, closing the door, hanging up the phone, not interested. So what you do is you make the offerings in this place of neutrality, loving who you are, loving what you love, and let the universe and the magnetics of that larger toroidal field do what it always does. It
Right.
brings like to like. It brings those
That's it.
magnetically attracts. Exactly.
Yes.
That's
It's
a big
effortless.
lesson. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Go ahead.
It's effortless now. And we get to be that way. We don't run after anything, and we hold the vibration. The vibration is the attractor,
Yeah.
and it brings it to us. And then in that, the effortlessness of a conversation is present. We're not hitting anyone on the head to get it. We're not wasting our energy. Only when we come together, everybody's in a win-win situation. No one feels imposed upon, or we feel we know the better way for them, and they're hurting themselves, and but they don't want to get out of it, so it's a waste of our time too.
Right.
And we say no.
They're very attached to all those ways and whatever their understandings are, and you're not going to wrestle that away from them. And there is a point in the journey that you really trust somebody else's journey. You trust the light inside other beings to lead them. And I think that was a big lesson I had to learn it probably the hard way. Wasn't always fun. Part of my, detoxing process from the conditioning and all the, false beliefs I had about what the responsibility is you have when you wake up. There's some of us do carry this of responsibility of I have to change the world. I have to help the world. I have to help my family. I have to help that person over there that's hurting, and that person. The only place and the only person we can really help to liberate is ourselves.
Yes.
And then by the living and embodying of it, like you spoke so beautifully of today, we give permission to other people to see if they're attracted to how we're living. And if they aren't, it's okay. They're on their own path. And it is a journey to get to that place of peace that everybody's where they need to be. And all are finding their way back into the oneness in their own way, right?
Perfect.
In their own way.
Perfect.
So it was beautiful talking with you today. I'm so grateful. I know we're going to have more conversations. More.
Likewise.
So much to share. Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
want to thank our listeners for just joining us in this conversation. Whole Soul Mastery really wants to bring through these breadcrumbs, I would say, Vanita, that's what we're planting, seeds in a garden of a higher consciousness that's summoning all of us to like the fruits, right? That Garden of Eden that awaits all of us and that lives inside all of us. That's what these podcasts are. They're seeds of that greater fruit, or they're seeds of the bigger garden. And so you can find us on the web at wholesoulmastery.com. We have a YouTube channel. You can find us at Whole Soul Mastery on YouTube and on many other social media platforms. And if you'd like to find Vanita, we're going to have more podcasts. She's also going to share an email with me after this call today, and I'll definitely be including that in the description section below. So if you have any comments, please post them in the comments areas. And we thank you for joining us today, and we send you many blessings. And I thank you again, Vanita, for just a beautiful, beautiful heart exchange in this stream of energy today. Just extraordinary. Thank you.
Thank you, Marie. Thank you.
Blessings, everyone. We'll see you next time.